So, today we're going to take a look at Team 17's latest attempt to bring the Worms universe to 3D in a 2011 title, Worms Ultimate Mayhem, a move that has not gone very well in the past. Did Mayhem do a better job than its predecessors, or are Team 17's best Worm days behind them? Let's find out. Attempting to recapture the same magic as its 2D counterpart, Mayhem is built within a bright and colorful world filled with stylized everyday objects. It certainly has a particular charm about it for those that enjoy the cartoon-like style. How well the graphics works varies from object to object, and standing on top of this new world is your crew for battle, the Worms. A squad of soldiers ready to claim victory by crushing their opponents with their choice of weapons. These pink gladiators are by far the best looking part of the graphics. With customizable head and hand gear, rather amusing animations, and great facial expressions, these guys look and feel just like what you would have expected of your Worms as they ventured out from the 2D universe. Unfortunately, the rest of the world didn't fare as well. While everything that you see is just as bright and colorful, much of the graphics just seem a little plain and bland in comparison to the Worms. Hoping to do battle on the top of a dirt mound in the middle of a huge puddle with giant seagulls, snails, and other creatures lurking overhead like those backgrounds of the previous titles? You won't find that here. Instead, your Worms are placed on some rather generic and small maps where the world around them has been scaled down to match their size. And not only are they shrunken, but much of them are quite bland and dull, with little terrain to navigate and hide within. What a shame. As for me, that takes away some of the magic from the franchise. What fun is it to fight as Worms if you don't get to fight from the micro-sized perspective? And with that, I give the graphics a scaled down and underwhelming C. And what's a quirky and playful world without some good sounds and music to back it up? Someplace that's not nearly as fun to be in. At least that's what I think. And thankfully, Team 17 feels the same way. Quirky explosions and sounds fill your ears as chaos and destruction falls around your combatants. Those familiar to the series will feel like coming home to the voices of the Super Sheep, grandmothers, and so many others as they fill your ears with a destructive sense of nostalgia. Ah, the memories. And thankfully your Worms are no exception. A wide assortment of voice packs just waits for you to cross over and enjoy as you build the perfect team of warriors to send off to battle, some of which are locked until you earn enough coins to enjoy them. Now, the only weak part of the sounds is the music. While none of it is bad, some of the tunes are rather bland and forgettable. Nothing quite stands out and just drags on in the background. And that's a shame, as to this day, I can still remember many of the tunes that played during my Armageddon days. Taking that into account, I give the sounds and music a well-earned B. As with all Worms titles, deathmatches, and strategy games, the most important part is how it plays. Veterans of the series will be asking, does it play like the Worms I remember? Is it just like suiting up for a good battle of Armageddon? The short answer is, not quite. On the surface, everything looks and feels the same with the same kinds of weapons and explosions, but somewhere along the lines during the transition to the 3D plane, something went missing. Let me explain. In the 2D titles, most of the fun was trying to figure out that perfect trajectory, lob, and bounce to get that grenade, cluster bomb, or bazooka shot to land in the right spot to totally decimate your enemies in that huge exploding chain reaction of destruction and chaos. It was a real challenge when you made the perfect shot all the way across the map. Playing Mayhem is a different story altogether. With the side angle view that allowed you to survey the field and carefully aim your shot gone, now you are forced to move your Worms in a third-person angle that oftentimes hinders you more than it helps you. And that's before the camera just starts spazzing out all over the place like a drunk monkey. Turns will be wasted just trying to figure out where you are and what you are looking at, especially when your Worms and the walls around them go transparent. This makes those long distance grenades and banana bombs a real pain in the butt, since all your aiming is done in a first person view that gives you no real indication on how your lob will go. Instead, you are left guessing or just moving close enough to take a safe bazooka or shotgun blast point blank. Amplifying this even more are the rather small maps. There's no need to depend on those big banks and chain reactions when with just a little bit of movement you can simply take an easy shot or push them off the edge. And what you are left with is less turn-based strategy, but turn-based first-person shooter. What's the fun in that? And that makes me a bit sad and forces me to give this aspect a quite disappointing D. Okay, here is the big one, the complete package. How are Worms Ultimate Mayhem's pieces put together? Are they joined in all the right ways to make a masterpiece, or crammed in so poorly that they form a jumbled mess? Well, let's start off with the good news. Is Worms Ultimate Mayhem a terrible game? Not in the least. If you like quirky humor, silly deathmatches, and cartoon-style graphics, it's still fun to play. Is it the next great Worms game that we have been all waiting for since Armageddon? Unfortunately, not. What we are left with is a game that got some things, like the sound, music, and humor right, but what is most important, wrong, the gameplay. Sure, those of us that spent hundreds of hours battling it out in the previous titles will get our share of nostalgia from Mayhem. But at the same time, what we most crave from a Worms title is missing here. What made Armageddon the best wasn't the graphics or the sound, but the way that it was all put together in a beautiful symphony of humor and chaotic destruction. A song that Team 17 hasn't quite mastered since. On the bright side, the character customization and story modes both offer a bit more variety and are fun to play with between matches. But that just isn't enough for me. I may go in and play a match or two, but Mayhem will never hold my attention or the same place in my heart that good old Worms Armageddon does. To this day, I can still go back and easily waste an hour or two downing my foes. In conclusion, I give Ultimate Mayhem a rather bland and disappointing C. Both those who grew up with the franchise and newcomers would be better off sticking with the classic.